Now let's take a look at some of those key stages within the digital identity process from the candidate's perspective. As with all our applications which involve digital elements, we are partnered with the organisation Yoti, who will run the digital elements of the application process. Here we can see some additional wording included in the Statement of Fair Processing, which candidates must agree to before proceeding through the digital application process. The actual digital identity steps within the application form process will be identical to those seen under our previous system. This process will begin, of course, with a brief listing of requirements from our partners at Yoti, the registered digital identity provider we use for these applications. Additionally, do be aware that candidates will be able to access a live chat feature throughout their application form if any additional support is required. A brief statement regarding the candidate's personal identity information will be provided, along with a link to a much more detailed breakdown of Yoti's full privacy notice. As a key part of this process involves taking clear photographs of both digital identity documents and their face, candidates are recommended to use a smartphone, as this will be easier to capture clear pictures. However, this isn't mandatory, and candidates can elect to continue with a computer as long as a camera is available. The process of selecting an identity document is carried out in two stages, the first of which requires the candidate to declare their document's issuing country, which will be available from the drop-down menu. The second stage of document selection will require the candidate to pick a specific document from the provided list. This list will be populated with available options depending on the issuing country candidates selected on the previous stage. Having confirmed the identity document that they wish to use, the candidate will be prompted to take a clear picture of said document. Once this picture has been captured, the candidate will have a chance to review and ensure the data has been successfully and correctly captured. As a final requirement of this process, Yoti will ask the candidate to submit a face scan. However, before this face scan can be carried out, the candidate must supply additional specific consents, allowing this face scan to be submitted and processed. As before, Yoti will provide a full link to their entire privacy policy, detailing exactly how this data will be used, stored, and ultimately deleted. Once consent has been received, the system will prompt the candidate to take a clear picture of their face. A brief video will be included on the systems, directing the candidate on how to continue with this process. Once all required digital elements have been captured successfully, the candidate will be notified, and after a few moments of processing time, the application form itself will be opened. Within the application form itself, certain personal details will have been previously captured from identity documents, and these sections will be automatically filled in on the candidate's behalf. Once the applicant has successfully moved through any remaining steps on the application form, they'll receive a standard confirmation message and advised of the next steps. In the event that the candidate was successful in uploading their digital identity elements, there will be no additional verification processes required. It is possible, however, that the digital elements of the application may fail for one reason or another. In the following slides, we will take a look at a few example scenarios which would lead to a digital identity failure from the applicant's side. It is important to note, of course, that because we would have selected an alternative fallback verification method, the failure of a digital application element will not necessarily terminate the entire application process, as we should still be able to move forwards with a manual verification option. The first example scenario is simply a situation where the candidate does not own any valid identity documents. This scenario could well occur even if a candidate does have sufficient documents to complete a DBS application, as not all document types are able to be scanned in by Yoti and accepted through digital means. If the candidate is unable to choose a document from the selection provided, they can select the option at the bottom stating "Check for other documents." Yoti may be able, in some cases, to expand the document list slightly, but if the candidate is still unable to choose a document from this expanded list, they can select the same option. This will terminate the digital route and the application will be pushed down the standard manual verification route instead. The second example scenario presents us with a case where the candidate has failed to take a clear picture of their identity documents for some reason. If Yoti fails to identify a valid document within the picture, the candidate will be presented with additional attempts. However, there is a maximum limit of 3 attempts to take a clear picture of the document, and if no clear picture can be captured within that limit, the application will instead be pushed down the manual verification route. In this third and final example scenario, a candidate has elected to not consent to have their face scanned as part of this process. As this specific consent is a required and crucial part of the application process for digital ID, if the candidate elects to skip that consent, the application form will be pushed down the manual verification route.